Hi, friends. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Ashley Ariano, joined by the wonderful Tom Jensen. Hi, Tom. I missed you.
Miss you too, Ashley. Good to have my power
For
back on.
I know I was going to say for people who don't know, because Tom and I stream every week, and if you missed us last week, we had some convoluted stuff, and Tom was fighting, the universe, but he got it all sorted for us, and now you look crystal clear.
Thankfully, yeah. Good to be back. Good to be with you.
Yes. And even more so on that, people might be like, "Okay, you guys missed one week, but I could have swore we were all in the live contributing to a chat when Ashley was in Florida, and there was lots of great information, and that live stream and all the clips seem to have disappeared from the internet. What happened there?" Well, I'm not at liberty to tell you what's happening there, but what I will say
Mm.
is for people who shame me for having a small channel, important people are watching. And I want to be very respectful and careful of anything that I hear, and I feel very privileged for any information that I'm, you know, given or can surmise myself from my own opinions and from conversations I had with others. And I just want to follow all the rules, and I love talking about the 49ers. I think it's fair to be critical of them when that's due, but I don't wanna abuse any sort of inside information I might have. So,
Yeah.
that's the reason that Tom and I's most recent 2 streams are not, there, and now we're gonna get into this one, and hopefully not piss off the universe and Tom's power, and not piss off anyone,
Yeah.
who could be watching. We love all you guys do, 49ers, you're the best. Cut it off now. Cut it off now. That's all you need to know. Okay.
Okay.
But some breaking news came out today. Now, this stuff is silly because it's hard when there's reports or rumors if someone doesn't come out and say it's said by this exact person, then you have to ask, is this just being made up for drama? So that's of course possible. But
Yeah.
I do think that majority of people, especially if they're reporters or they have large platforms, they try to be pretty honest because it's going to screw you over if you're someone who has a platform and you say, "Hey, I have this inside scoop," and then it turns out you're just making it up. People are going to start to unfollow you. They're not going to trust you. So what came out today was that the 49ers have reached out to multiple teams picking in the top 6 of the NFL draft to potentially trade up and select a player. The 49ers have 11 picks in the 2015, the 2025 draft, and have definitely the capital to trade up if they want to.
Yeah.
Um, Now, they need players at pretty much every position. So when people say, "Oh, they have 11 picks," they can combine all those and trade up. I'm semi hesitant because I think what we've heard from John Lynch when he's talked and Kyle Shanahan from what when he's talked, most recently at the owners meetings and in their interviews, is that they need to hit on basically all of these draft picks, which is impossible to do. So they need to hit on the majority of the draft picks, and they need them to be instant contributors. So you actually think you need as many draft picks as possible because if a third of them don't work out, at least you have enough players to fill in the holes. The 49ers have gaps right now. They can't really afford to only make 5 picks because they're consolidating all of these other ones to move up. Now top 6 is interesting, and if you guys haven't read it, you probably haven't because it just came out a couple minutes ago. Tom wrote an article going over who he thinks could be the potential 11th pick. And something that you addressed, Tom, is that there is kind of a talent gap when it comes to after, I think you said 7 in your article.
Yeah. After
um,
9, there's 9 really solid players. And then after that, it's eye of the beholder. And so the Niners, if they want to get one of those truly solid blue chip guys, they do have to trade up. Unless one of those luckily falls to them. But the way that the draft's being mocked right now, no, those 9 guys would be taken.
So top 6, and it was said that the 49ers have reached out to the Patriots quite a bit. Um, I think that I'm not sure if the 49ers would have luck. And honestly, I could like I feel like earlier me, like to start this offseason, if someone would have said, "Do you think the 49ers could trade up?" And plus, sorry, I'm being scatterbrained. Jed York did say in his meeting that he had on the record, um, he actually said because someone said, how do you deal with your record being 6-11 last year? And he said, coaches don't feel this way. Coaches want to win, the Super Bowl and get as close to winning the Super Bowl every time. But for me as an owner, I'd rather be really, really good or be really, really bad because then I have the potential of drafting such an impact player. Think of the 49ers when they drafted Nick Bosa. They wouldn't have been in that position if they hadn't have done so bad. If they would have been at pick 11, Nick Bosa, was going to go one or two. So
Yeah.
I understood his logic, and I think me at the start of this offseason, my ideology has just been proven to be so wrong. But we were coming off the 49ers were coming off a down year, and I was thinking there must be pressure on John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. They're gonna really attempt to go all in this year. They have the Super Bowl at Levi's this year. They're gonna go out in free agency. They're gonna make, not go get a ton of players, but they're gonna go get a couple high end impact players that can really help them in these critical spots that I think they've missed the playoffs or missed winning the Super Bowl because they've been down on the offensive line because they haven't had a bookend on the other side of Nick Bosa. So I thought that they were in free agency gonna really make an impact. And if you would have told me who had that level of thinking, the all in thinking, I wouldn't have been totally opposed to trading up because I felt this way last year too. You and I had talked about it. Like I was like, if there's a guy who you can confidently, like all your scouts and the way you feel is that this guy is going to be an impact player for you, um, for the entirety of his rookie contract. He's going to help you compete to win a Super Bowl, and then you might want to even extend him. Then that that is worth it. You go out and you get that player. But now I kind of because now that we've seen this is it's a rebuild year. They're about saving cap, they're about saving cash. They are not competing to go all in this year.
No.
They're not really competing to win a Super Bowl. I mean, I know Jed York said like if Christian McCaffrey is healthy, then he could still see them being contenders. I'm not totally poo-pooing that, but I just think that that's pretty unrealistic. To me, they're very okay with not being contenders. If it happens, if it works out, that's fine. But they're not doing anything to go out and chase it. And so
Right.
trading up seems to be like against the whole philosophy of this offseason. It is what I would have originally wanted them to do, but now to me it wouldn't make sense and it'd be kind of like stupid. You need so many
Well,
players. Why don't you trade, either stay where you're at or trade back and then you have like I said more of an opportunity to hit on the guys you're drafting versus trading up. But maybe Tom, I could be wrong and I could be uh overly pessimistic because I was so optimistic that now I'm like
I'm such a
being
bad
critical.
influence on you, Ash.
Oh, Tom's frozen. Oh, Tom. Oh, Tom, oh, Tom, come back. Do you think Tom will come back? I think he's gonna come back. Um, let me know in the chat if you
I
guys
don't.
do think. Oh, Tom's back. I'll
Sorry
wait.
about
I'll wait
that.
for Tom to fully come back. But while
Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry about that.
no
So
worries,
I'll try to do this in a quick burst. The argument for trading up is that
tell
you
me.
need greatness. You need a foundation going forward. You need a star. If they're going to lose Trent Williams, be it this year, next year, they're going to need a tackle. And the toughest thing to find in the league, other than quarterback, is left tackle. And therefore, trading up to go get Armand Membu makes sense in that context. If they're talking to New England, they're hoping that Abdul Carter somehow falls to 4. The talk right now is that's not going to happen. Is that it's going to be Cam Ward 1, Travis Hunter 2, Abdul Carter 3. If Carter falls to 4, the Niners could say, okay, New England, you want to trade? And New England will say, no, we want Abdul Carter. So I think that that's out anyway. But what the Niners are after is trying to get Membu. And so what they would do is trade up to 5 with Jacksonville. Trading up, the rumor is they're trading up to 6. As I've said before, Mark Davis doesn't want to have anything to do with the Niners. He's not going to trade with us. So if the Niners want Membu, they're going to have to trade up to 5. The Jets at 7 are interested in Membu or Tyler Warren, so you'd have to jump ahead of them. Christopher, I'll say now, I hate the idea of drafting Kelvin Banks. Hate, 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 hate. Normally, I don't do that. Normally, I don't have a player where I'm saying there is no way. I'll go this far. If they draft Kelvin Banks, I'm done as a Niner fan. That's how strong I am on this. He's a guard only. He cannot play left tackle in the league, in my opinion. He's a waist bender, a lunger. He's got balance issues. His arms are too short.
Oh, Tom. Here, I wonder if I can take Tom. Can I remove him and then have him come back? I'm gonna let Tom do his thing. And while Tom is doing that, I'm gonna read some of his article that you guys can go talk about. But his scenario for trading up is to get Membu, Missouri offensive tackle. Membu is expected to be gone by 7, but if he falls past the Jets and is still on board at 9, the Niners need to be on the phone with New Orleans to trade up. Now, there's been rumors that the 49ers could trade Brock Purdy to New Orleans, but this is interesting, trading with New Orleans to go get. Hi, Tom. How you doing?
Hey, Ashley, sorry about this. It's
No worries. Oh, Tom, if you can hear me, maybe restart your computer, and I'm just gonna continue to talk about what he said. So, trading up with New Orleans to go get Membu, the cost would presumably be pick 100 at the end of the 3rd round. And Tom says that he feels like that is worth it. I kind of agree. That's not actually that much to. Hi, Tom.
Hey, Ashley, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. So just for Christopher, it's just I'm of the opinion that Banks can only be a left guard. I think he'd be a great left guard in the league. I think that he could be a Pro Bowl potential guard, but at left tackle, I think he'd be shredded weight. So
I
I don't want him at left tackle, and I don't want him to be picked.
I've seen him projected to the 49ers in many mock drafts, but I did know that he struggles with the short arms. Before we jump into him, I shouldn't have brought up that comment yet. I did want to expand on Membo. In your latest article, you talk about the 49ers might be, if he makes it past 7, the 49ers could potentially trade with New Orleans to get Membo. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Um Hi Tom, there's so many of you.
I'm mutating. What do you know? I'm so
To be fair, guys, this isn't Tom's fault. He did have some internet issues last week, and we thought that we fixed them. But if he can't go, if whenever he comes back, I'm gonna let him know to maybe try to restart his.
so yeah,
Oh,
moving up from Membu, here's the thinking.
here's the thinking. Tom, if you can hear me. Oh, hey Tom, if you restart your computer, do you think that that would help?
I'm offline for 10 to 15 minutes when I restart.
Got it. I can't hear you. Maybe try it anyways. I can talk about some other rumors for 15 minutes while you do that. Uh-oh. Okay. I wonder if I should move off of talking about the draft because Tom is obviously more of an expert, and I did want to hear what his thinking with getting Membu is. Now Tom does clarify in his article that he would trade up for Membu, who is an offensive tackle. I think that the 49ers need to invest in that position. Um, First of all, they don't have another guy on the other side of Trent Williams who is an impact player, and Trent Williams himself is, on the other end of his career. He's much older. Tom did text me and said he's restarting his computer now. So, but Trent Williams is obviously one, much older. Two, he's fractured or twisted or broken his ankle slash had high ankle sprains about 10 times, and 5 times in the most recent season. So 5 seasons in a row, Trent has hurt his ankle. Last year, he wasn't able to finish the season, didn't play most of the season due to his ankle injury. Um, I think that has nothing to do with Trent Williams', ability to power through. It's just when you are repeatedly injuring something, the healing process doesn't react the way that it would if it was the first time that you've ever sprained your ankle. So if you guys remember, originally Kyle Shanahan had told the media that it was going to be like um a 3 week injury for Trent, because normally an ankle sprain, it wasn't even a high ankle sprain, you kind of wrap it up, you ice it, you elevate it, and then you can be back out there within 3 weeks. But because there's so much cartilage, so much tissue damage in Trent's ankle, it just continued to swell for 3 weeks. And it was actually getting worse and worse. So he couldn't travel with the team, and it wasn't responding to his rehab and his physical therapy. And that's why Trent Williams ended up missing the majority of the season. Now, John Lynch did talk at the owners' meetings. And I think even before that, said Trent Williams is 100%. He's healthy and he's really ready to go back out there and kind of prove himself and put good tape on there, because he's not super proud of the tape that he did put out when he was playing last year with that injury. Obviously, Trent is a guy who, he's a Hall of Fame player and he has a ton of pride. I do think there is something when you're that caliber of elite player, you don't really want to go on the field if you're not going to be your best self. You don't want to put bad tape. You don't want to have, you know, defensive tackles that should never be able to stand up to you throwing you around. And I think there is some sort of ego that goes into that. And I don't mean ego in a negative way even. I think when it comes to like players like Nick Bosa, Trent Williams, those like Hall of Fame level players that are a little bit more like independent contractors versus team guys, like they're all about their stats, and obviously they want to win, but I think that they care more about protecting themselves, taking care of their body, and also their reputation that will live on after football. So is it possible that Trent Williams either A, continues to get injured and not be able to be his best self, or B, what if he retires? You guys have to remember Joe Staley retired right after the draft is when he announced it, but the 49ers knew months before and they begged Joe Staley to not announce it because they wanted to have the edge up, where if other teams knew that Joe Staley was retiring when he did, other teams wouldn't have let them trade up because they would have known, okay, they're going to go after Joe Staley's replacement. So we're going to try to sabotage the 49ers who are, trying to have a replacement at this level. But because no one knew he was retiring, when other teams are trying to anticipate what the 49ers, are going to do, obviously it's like, oh yeah, they could draft a tackle, but there wasn't like a need for it. So it wasn't as high on their list. And I think I'm not saying this is happening this year, but if Trent were to retire, I do think that they would handle it the same way, where they would say, "Hey Trent, like keep this just between us. Let us scout everyone without having other teams trying to, influence and trying to figure out what we're doing. Let us see who's there on draft day. Make our pick. If it's Trent Williams, if it's a left tackle, I'd be interested to see if Trent Williams comes back this year, because I'm it's not this is a conspiracy theory, but it's not far-fetched, because the 49ers quite literally did this with Joe Staley, where they kept it hush hush. Joe Staley had retired, told them that he was going to retire months before the draft. They kept it hush hush. They drafted his replacement. Then it was announced after the draft. I could see that same thing with Trent Williams. Also, is it possible that Trent Williams could demand a trade? You have to think Trent Williams and Deebo Samuel were friends. They were the walkout like speaker guys. They've been really close friends. They both lived in Morgan Hill for the majority of their career. I think Trent Williams now lives in Pleasanton when he's, in season. Obviously, he has houses all over. But one, he's friends with Deebo Samuel. Deebo demanded a trade. Two, Trent Williams, like I said, he's playing through injury and he's, maybe has 1 to 3 more years left of his playing career. He's old. He's an old guy now, and he's still plays, at an elite level. Even for Trent Williams, he's still better than the majority of tackles, even guys who are younger at him. But he knows that he's on the other side of his career. Maybe he feels like, hey, everything that's come out this offseason is that you guys are trying to save cash. John Lynch has talked about saving, you got to save to pay Brock Purdy. They can't have that much talent around them. Jed York is kind of saying, we can compete for a championship if Christian McCaffrey comes back and is healthy, top of his game, Christian McCaffrey. Maybe Trent Williams is kind of like, I'm not interested in this rebuild year that you guys are pseudo making. I only have a couple years left. I want to compete for a championship. That's the one thing that Trent Williams has not, he's not won a Super Bowl yet. He's a certified Hall of Fame player. He could retire today and he's going to the Hall of Fame. The one thing that he has not done is won a Super Bowl. What if he goes, "Hey, I'm not interested in this rebuild. You guys want to get younger? You want to get cheaper and younger? Sorry, I'm going to go pay for the Bills. I'm going to go play for the Eagles." Maybe he wants to go to a team that he thinks is a contender. Is it possible D'Amico Ryans, the Texans, they got rid of their left tackle this offseason? What if he wants to go play for D'Amico Ryans? He feels like that team is a couple players away. They could actually, contend for a championship. They're in a weaker division. Also, I think he's from Houston, so that's a hometown. So what if Trent Williams demands a trade? And it could be the same thing. They could say, "Hey, keep this hush hush." And if you're thinking that's conspiracy, they're not going to do that. That's what happened this offseason, this exact offseason with Debo Samuel. Debo came out and said, "Hey, I requested a trade." And I told Kyle in the exit meetings. The exit meetings happen the day after the season is over. So this happened, before the playoffs, a couple, month or two before the Super Bowl is when the 49ers were eliminated from the playoffs. They clear out their lockers. And the next day, players meet with coaches. And I'm sure Kyle Shanahan thought he was going to meet with Debo. Now, obviously, they're friends, but Debo was coming off a down year. I'm sure Kyle was thinking like, I need to either A, ask Debo to take a pay cut, or and B, I need to show him, why aren't you getting open? Why can't you catch the ball? Like, we really depended on you and we lost critical games over targeting you. When we did win, you went on Twitter and complained that you weren't getting enough targets. And so we did everything to make you happy. And then you're getting in fights with your, teammates on the field. Like, this is unacceptable. I'm sure Kyle thought he was going in to, kind of give Debo a lesson, similar to Debo said the year prior that he didn't feel like he did too bad, and then Kyle showed him a lot of tape about how he was not able to get open running routes. He was not catching the ball. He was kind of half-assed. He wasn't running routes when he knew, or he was running them, but he wasn't giving 100% to routes when he knew he wasn't getting the ball. And the year before, Debo had admitted this and came back to camp kind of in shape and said, Kyle really kind of showed me my ass and I'm turning it around and I'm you know, here to practice, here to participate. I want to be the best version of myself. Then he has another down year. He ends up going to that meeting, the meeting right after the season ends, and he demands a trade. But that didn't come out. If you guys remember, no one knew that Debo had demanded a trade until about 2 weeks before he was traded to the Commanders, which was like a month ago. The 49ers have been, not playing football for several months. So for several months, John Lynch and Kyle, when asked about Debo, because they had an exit meeting, John Lynch and Kyle, they asked and they said, "Oh, it's all good." Sorry, I had a notification on my phone. I want to make sure it wasn't Tom. Um, but they said, "Oh, like we love Debo. There's no problem," because people were asking about the Brandon Ayuk rumors and if Ayuk was going to get traded. This was prior to them signing him on April 1st, giving him the extra signing bonus. But reporters were asking them in that exit interview about Brandon Ayuk, and then some other reporter said, "Well, what about Debo?" John Lynch scoffed and he was like, "Oh, what about Debo? We're not in the business of trading good players. We love Debo." At that point, Debo had already demanded a trade. So the 49ers knew that they were trading Debo when they met with the media and scoffed at that idea. And why did they do that? Because they didn't want other teams to know. They wanted to go in the background, try to find Debo's value, try to see how much of the cap of Debo's salary another team would take on, try to make teams compete. And all I'm saying is it's not far-fetched to say, because Debo kept it a secret up until a couple weeks before he was traded, and the 49ers didn't address it basically until he was traded, that he had demanded a trade. So it's possible that A, Trent Williams is retiring, and we don't know. Joe Staley did that. and the 49ers made it hush hush until after the draft, or B, Trent Williams has demanded a trade, and we don't know that, and it won't come out until after the draft if the 49ers end up drafting his replacement. That's why I know, and I do want to wait for Tom to get back, but I know Tom is kind of against Kelvin Banks. Kelvin Banks is a left tackle, and a lot of people think he's a certified, he can start at left tackle right away. There's Bears fans, they're picking at or at 10 right before the 49ers, who are, hoping and praying that the Bears go get Kelvin Banks. Now, the issue with Kelvin Banks is he does have much shorter arms. And so when Tom is so adamantly against that, it's because if he's going against a guy like Miles Garrett, who's, obviously an incredible player, the arm length, the distance, it doesn't matter how good Kelvin Banks's technique is. He could have the best hands, he could have the best moves. He literally won't be able to reach. Like if Miles Garrett is pushing, Kelvin Banks's arms are so short that he wouldn't be able to enact any of his moves without that. Now, so I understand, but you're not going against Miles Garrett every single play, and a lot of players have shorter arms, and Kyle Shanahan will scheme there to be a double team on that side. So maybe you can't get Miles Garrett on his first step, but maybe you get him on his second step. Like you can work around this. And the thing about Kevin Banks is he was a starter his entire time. Hold on. I think Tom's back. I don't see his face, but I see his name. You guys don't know the back of StreamYard, but I'm wondering if I should give it another second for his face to pop up. Oh, or if I should just. Hey Tom,
Oh,
how you doing?
okay. Sorry, Ashley. Sorry,
No
buddy.
worries. I was
Okay.
I went off topic and started talking about some rumors, and I got into talking about the scenarios where potentially Trent Williams either retires or demands a trade, and then maybe there is a need for left tackle, and maybe that's why so many people are mocking Kelvin Banks, the 49ers.
Could
And
be.
then I did start talking about his short arms and how that will be a huge flaw for him within the NFL. But I'd love to hear more of your opinion about it. I really just 5 seconds ago mentioned him. I was more just talking about
Okay.
the potential with Trent Williams.
The main concern with Banks is his balance issues, that he'll waistband, which removes the power from a tackle, and he'll lunge. So he'll go forward and try to throw his body weight at somebody to stop him.
And
And
you could fall
obviously,
for
you sacrifice your position, your balance, your power, everything. He lunges a lot, which is why a lot of people in the league think he's only a guard. That if you put him on an island, his technical issues will get worse, and he has trouble with speed. So if you put him at left tackle, I just look upon it as just that's a bad idea. He can be a great guard in the league, but he can't play left tackle. So do not draft him with the intention of having him
expectations.
replace Trent. He can't, he won't.
Got
And
it.
they did that with McGlinchey and it failed. Don't
Yes.
do it
And
again.
you look down and don't feel like that was the right pick because not only did you not retain him for a second contract, but you don't feel like he fulfilled his initial contract. Now,
Right.
Membu is an offensive tackle. You expect him to be gone by 7, but you said potentially he could make it past.
Possibly. Is that you
Let me know who he is, where he played, why you like him.
okay? Armand Membu is in Missouri. He's 330 and a great athlete, moves really well. He's got a lot of power. He's got far better technique than Banks. He plays right tackle. He's only played right tackle, but given his athleticism and his technical ability, he can play left tackle in the league. You would have to groom him for that role and coach him up to it. But while Trent is playing left, Membu is playing right, and he can learn what he needs to know to succeed in the NFL playing left. With Banks, I think that the issue is how he plays. It's just how he wins, why he loses, or why he can't play left tackle in the league. In Membu's case, the knock on him is really over aggression more than anything else. That's something that can be coached and dealt with. So if they're going to replace Trent, you have to have a left tackle that can actually replace him. And so that's Membu, that's Will Campbell from LSU. That is not Kelvin Banks, and that's why I'm against drafting him. If you're taking Banks, you have to look upon him only as a guard. He can
I
be a
have a
great guard,
question.
but he can only be a guard in the league. That's my issue. And that Why take a left tackle? Why take a guy saying he's going to replace Trent and then he can't?
Yeah,
And the same thing happened with McGlinchey. He could not play left. And because they forced the position on McGlinchey, 7 All Pros were taken after McGlinchey in that draft.
yeah,
6
you
in the
don't want to risk.
first, plus Lamar later in the draft.
Can I ask you really quick? Because you mentioned Campbell, and I feel like I don't see him uh in your. Did you talk about him in your article that came out today? I know you've talked about him in the past, but
Yeah,
why is he not being talked about more in relation to the
because the
49ers?
expectation is that New England will take him at 4.
Got it.
The first 3 are kind of locked in, though the Giants did just work out Shadur again, and I think that's the owner just saying
I
we
saw
want to
that.
dot the i's and cross the t's. Everything that's being reported out of New York remains that they're going to take whoever's left out of Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. That's going to be their pick. And so then it goes to 4 at New England, and they take Will Campbell, according to most people. They could take Membo. I think Membo's better than Campbell, but all the projections, all the talk out of Boston is Campbell's going to be their pick at 4. And that's why the Niners then trade up to 5 with Jacksonville so that they can get Membo, because the Raiders would take Genty at 6, and then the Jets could take Membo at 7. So if the Niners want to make sure they get Membo, that's why they have to trade up to 5.
Okay. What if they trade up for Campbell? Is that like if Membu does go, would you
Well,
be
but
happy with that or no?
if Campbell goes at 4, you have to pay even more to get him, and he's not the guy you would really prefer between the two anyway.
Okay,
If I'm the Niners, I want Membo.
got it. And you think he's more of a scheme fit as well?
Yeah, both of them
That's
are. Both of them can play within the wide zone. They've got the movement skills to do that. Both of them are technically sound. Both of them are great athletes. But I think that Membo is the better fit, the better player.
that makes sense. That makes sense. Now, the other two players offensive wise that you talked about that could be there at 11 if they don't trade up. And it feels like 11 is kind of annoying because it's high but not high enough necessarily.
That's the
But
problem, is that where this draft ends at 9 in terms of the great players. And so you're just on the outside of that, which is why they can think about moving up, or they can hope that a lot of quarterbacks are taken so that somebody in that top 9 falls to 11.
false.
Yeah.
I like that.
But the way the
Um,
draft is projected now, not going to happen. Those 9 guys will be gone.
that makes sense. Now you highlighted two of the tight ends, and I've seen some contra. I know Jesse Naylor, I think, prefers Connor Loveland. I go all the way back to earlier this offseason when Matt Mayoko, who's known to have relationships with guys within the 49ers, he mocked Tyler Warren coming to the
Right.
49ers. I'm kind of hesitant about the 49ers drafting a tight end at 11 no matter what, not because I don't think they could use a second tight end. They've been attempting to get that tight end and failing for quite a while now, and obviously Kittle is getting older, but they're supposed to extend Kittle this year, and I do think I just would prioritize the trenches more since they're being talked about. Can we briefly explain who Tyler Warren is, who Connor Loveland is, and maybe which one you
Yeah.
prefer? Because
Okay.
there seems to be some confusion. The
Yeah.
people have
Well,
their favorites out of the two.
Tyler Warren is the higher projected player of the two. He's from Penn State. He's a little bit older, slower, bigger. He had 17 red zone touchdowns in his last 2 seasons. So from Kyle's perspective, my biggest problem on offense is scoring in the red zone. Tyler Warren fixes that. I want that guy.
Oh no, it was working so great. Darn. Tom was on a roll. Tyler Warren fixes the red zone woes. Now, I would just why Tom figures this
Heck,
out.
he can
I would
play tight
argue
end.
that Kittle could fix the red zone woes if they actually just targeted him more. Um,
Right.
he's
So
just
Warren's the red zone guy. Colston Loveland is younger, faster. In some ways, would be a better receiver in this system. He's from Michigan. He's also considered to be a top 10 to 12 guy. So he's somebody that could be on their radar, but I don't think they would take him. I think that they would take Warren if he was there at 11 and they didn't trade up. But every expectation is Warren's gone. The Jets like him at 7. New Orleans likes him at 9. Chicago likes him at 10. one of those three is going to take Tyler Warren and he'll be gone.
Okay. So Chicago, Saints, Jets, 17 touchdown. Now, why do some people, if you're there, why do some people prefer Loveland then? Because it feels like just based on stats and touchdowns that Tyler Warren is the obvious pick. But I have heard people say that Loveland is the better prospect. Is that testing wise?
It
What
it
is
it
that measurables?
part of it's just being younger and
Okay.
faster. It's basically that Tyler Warren is Gronk and Colston Loveland is Travis Kelsey. That's the comps when you think about them.
Okay. Well, if we're thinking about the 49ers and how their offense maybe needs some like more pass catchers and speed, maybe Loveland is the better pick and if you
Could
think
be.
about it in that sense.
Yeah. And there's other tight ends. There's Elijah Arroyo from Miami who's faster than all of them and the best receiver of all of them, but he's not a good blocker.
Okay, well, I mean they already didn't they just extend or not extend go get Farrell who's
Yeah,
the
but
tight end?
Farrell can walk 2 yards and catch a pass. He's not a downfield threat.
But that's what I'm
He's
saying like
only
he'll be the
Farrell's
blocker. Can they go?
Farrell's only a blocker.
Yeah, but so that does to me, that means that doesn't rule out them going and getting a tight end that is more of a receiver and doesn't have the blocking ability. Normally, I would say
Yeah.
Kyle obviously prefers a guy that can block, but like right now, it's like, okay, we have a lot of guys on our offense that can block. We're losing. I mean, Brandon Ayuk, I don't think is going to be able to participate in the majority of the season next year. They did lose Debo. I know he hasn't been the best, but they lost two guys on offense who are, usually getting targets and catching the ball. I wouldn't rule out them getting, going out and getting a guy whose receiving is his number one ability, especially if they are going to extend Kittle and Kittle can still block very well. Oh, it feels like Tom. Do you think that side eye means Tom thinks what I just said is wrong? Or like I think he's thinking, wow, Ashley, you just made a great point. Um the 49ers should not waste
So
pick number 11 on a
the issue with
49ers should not waste a top 11 pick on a tight end, especially when there's tight ends later on the draft. Can you tell me
yeah,
who the receiving
agreed.
tight end is, Tom?
But
Nope. No, we can't. Mitchell and S says Tom looks suspicious. Tom's internet is just glitching. He's not. He doesn't look suspicious. He's just trying to be able to guess when he's actually going to be able to talk without the
so
internet
somebody
cutting
like
out on
Arroyo,
him.
he averages. He had
Tom, I don't have you at all.
at
Oh,
all.
you're now I do.
Okay. Mitchell and Ness agreed. I do. I look terrible. I need to get to San
No.
Diego. I need to get my health back. I need to get my internet back. I need to have the power in my apartment working. Stuff like that would be good. Um, for the Niners, why they would want a receiving tight end? Because they need one because Kittle's the only one they have. The issue with having a guy that can only do one thing well is you lose predictability or unpredictability. A guy
Defense
that can
defense
only
knows what's
catch, he's going to have this giant neon sign over his head. I can only catch. A guy that can only block, I can only block. That's the
up.
problem.
It makes you I can understand that. It makes your offense predictable. Defenses know how to target not only that player, but maybe everyone else on the field because it's like, okay, if this guy can only do this, then we can predict what these other guys are gonna do.
And
Um,
Shanahan's offense is built on having unpredictability, so the
that
defense
was
doesn't
kind
know
of the
what's coming.
issue. That was kind of the issue with Mason for a while, right? Like people felt like he was
Yeah.
really bad at and I'm not necessarily saying I agree, but the rumor was he was bad at pass protection and he was great at running, but whenever he was on the field, they knew, hey, he's going to run the ball cuz he's not very good at anything else. Um it looks like Tom is freezing again. He's super frustrated cuz yeah, I I'd be frustrated too. I agree, Julie. Tom is a sweetheart and we can always go again later this week if Tom's internet doesn't end up working out. Hi, Tom.
Actually, I'm sorry, everybody. I am so sorry. All right. So what do we got? What else?
I wanted to. Okay, we'll move past the offensive picks that they could have at pick 11, and more likely, in my opinion, I think they'll go defense. You highlighted a couple players they could go at defense as well. Can I ask you about Campbell? You said he would be your pick, but then I guess he's had a repaired torn labrum. So now
Yeah,
you feel like the
he
49ers won't.
he had labrum surgery, so he's going to be gone for 6 months. And the problem is that you install the defense in camp, and so he would miss the install, and that would make it a lot harder for him to play in his rookie year.
Yeah, make an immediate impact, which they need. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's say we're
So there's
moving
no
up.
linebacker they can take at 11 because Campbell is not available.
Got it. And I don't know. I don't know if linebackers necessarily their top need. So
It's
I'm
one
not
of them
opposed to
because they
them.
lost Greenlaw, so it's pretty big.
I had a DM and it was asking me if I thought the 49ers were going to take a linebacker, also take a running back within the top three rounds. My initial response to that was probably no on linebacker, maybe yes running back in round 3, although they might want to skip on round 3 running backs because they don't have the best luck with them.
Yeah, the
But
history
I
is
know
bad.
I know Cam Scatty is projected to go. Um, do you think that they'll pick? Just since we talked about linebacker there, you think
I don't think they'll take a linebacker in the first 3 rounds, though they are talking to Chris Paul Jr., who's capable, and they have him in for a 30 visit. So he's one that could break the mold on that. It's possible that he could be a late third round pick for them at a 100. Um, Running back, I think it's possible, though people might not like the idea that they take a running back at 43. That's the second round pick. That's their second pick overall. Trevion Henderson from Ohio State is Kyle's dream back. That's the way I've always phrased it for him. Everything Kyle wants in a running back, Henderson has: home run speed, pass, catch, pass block, everything, including never fumbling. He hasn't lost a fumble in his
that's
entire
that's most
career.
important
Yeah.
for
For
Kyle and his
Kyle,
trust
who's
issues.
hypersensitive to fumbling, somebody that's never lost a fumble in his career at Ohio State is something Kyle's going to pay close attention to. So I think Trevion's a possibility if he lasts 43. The current mocks have Chicago taking him at 41. The Bears are going to be a real problem for the Niners throughout this
Yeah,
draft. They have the
they keep
exact
trying to eat
same
the players that
needs.
we need one pick ahead of us.
Right. And they're going to take the players where you're going to say, damn it, the Bears just took the guy we need. That's going to happen a lot in this draft. And that's especially going to happen in the second because they've got 39 and 41. They have 2 picks in the early second before the Niners pick at 43. That's going to make it really hard for the Niners to get who they want at 43. If they want Trevion Henderson, I think they would have to move past Chicago and move up and get to 38 or higher in the second round. I don't think they will. I think they're just going to wait and see who falls to 43 and then react. If that's Trevion Henderson, I think that would be who Kyle would want. He would jump up and down and pound the table for Trevion.
Normally, I would say that's way too high for a running back, but in this offense where it feels like the only time they've gotten to a Super Bowl is when they've had an all-star, running back that is just taking
Yeah,
over the offense. I'm not exactly opposed to it. I know it's like I feel like not good form to take a running back so early, especially with the 49ers who are paying, not Trent Williams, Chris McCaffrey right now, but Chris McCaffrey is an unknown when it comes to health, and they they don't just want a good running back, they want an all-star running back in this offense.
right. And therefore, Trevion is that he's got all pro capability. He has an all pro ceiling. The other running back they like is Caleb Johnson from Iowa. He had a formal interview with them at Indy. He's more of a power back as opposed to Henderson, who's more of just a shorter, smaller home run hitter type.
Okay, Mitchell and S wants us to talk about Tootin?
Bashul Tootin, yeah, and no fumbles and good speed and a workhorse. Yeah, Tootin would work too. He's
When's
another
he
one.
supposed to go?
I think that Trevion is more talented in his overall game and in everything that Kyle loves. I mean, if you told Kyle, what do you want? No fumbles, great in pass pro, makes good choices in the run game, and can be a legitimate threat as a receiver. He's the only one in the draft that really does all that other than Genty. So That's why I think that he would prefer Henderson. But Tootin would definitely be on his radar. I think there's no question of that.
Where is Tootin supposed to go? Are they similarly?
Fourth, usually fourth is most mocks have him in the fourth round.
Okay, so if they don't end up reaching or not reaching, but drafting a running back higher, there's tons of running backs that are later on in the draft that
There's a
could
couple
be
players. So Tootin would be one of them. Brashard Smith from SMU, who's a converted wide receiver, so he's got great skills in the pass game and
Kyle loves
and
that.
an improving runner. He's somebody that would fit also. There's been a lot of talk about RJ Harvey, but he's 24. I don't want them to take another 24-year-old rookie after taking two of them last year.
Especially when they've spent all offseason talking about needing to get younger.
Yeah,
Um, Okay, we went on a little tangent. It was mostly me because I had that DM about if they would take a running back high. But back to pick 11, and this is one that I feel like has been a high contender for the 49ers and drafted him since early on this offseason. Walter Nolan, D tackle from Old Miss. High upside. You talk about high traits, good pass rush skills. Tell me how you feel about Walter Nolan, and if the 49ers, if he fits in their system,
I
it'd
think
be a
he's
good
a
fit.
consideration. Yeah, as I said in the article, he's one of my top three. If I had three finalists, I think he's one of them for the pick at 11. And the reason why is because I think they're going to take at both end and tackle a guy that can rush the passer, that's a disruptor and a penetrator, and a guy that can stop the run. And they're going to do that. They're going to double up at both positions. Defensive tackle, they're going to have a boulder, a run stuffer, and a guy that's a disruptor like Nolan. So the theory on Nolan is that he can penetrate well, that he's very quick, that he has great clay, as they say, got great traits and ability. He had 6.5 sacks for Ole Miss this year. He can penetrate the line and get in, but he's very undisciplined. He doesn't have the run discipline in the run game to hold his gap, and he can lose his balance frequently. He doesn't have good contact balance, so he ends up on the ground a lot. That's the problem with Nolan. But as a pass rusher, he's arguably the best pass rushing defensive tackle in the draft. So that's why they would consider him. But he's raw. He needs a lot of work on his technique, and he needs to learn to win with technique rather than just physicality.
Now, having the traits, I feel like we've seen Chris Kosarek, maybe less so in the draft, but when you think about those like 1 year players that they've taken chances on, and then they've totally upped their value and ended up getting multi-year contracts from other teams. I'm thinking Charles Omenihu, but I know there's been more than that. Do
Sure.
you feel like that's a good bet for them? It's interesting. It's worked out in those, like, whenever I think of Chris Kocurek with veteran, like 1 year player veterans, it's worked out. But when I think about development from rookies, I feel like there's kind of been a lack of that under the 49ers, which is kind of confusing because you
Yeah.
think development no matter what would be fine. Um, do you think that's a solid, I guess, gamble to make? It seems like
It's
he in
it's
the right
really
system could be
risky.
great.
Yeah, the thing with Nolan and with some other players that are high traits, no stats, is you're taking a huge gamble where you're taking a lot of faith. You're taking a leap of faith with Kosaric that he can develop these guys. It didn't work with Drake Jackson. Part of that was that USC played with his weight so often that he never really got into a single role and perfected it. So when he was in college, he would play four different roles depending on the year and the coach. And then he
Okay.
came to the Niners and he didn't really find his way. He didn't find a place. Then he hurt his knee, and then patellar tendon. There goes the career.
Yeah.
Robert Beal
And that's
Jr.
less
They
that's less on like the developmental staff. It's more just injuries.
Yeah, it's partially injuries and it's partially just poor coaching at SC. Was that they never figured out what they wanted to do with him, and so they
Yeah.
kept moving him around and changing his body type.
I remember that coming into the draft, it was like he could
Okay,
be
this is what I do
very
well.
heavy
Boom.
or lighter.
Well, both. They had him go add his weight one year and lose his weight the next. So, Julie, thanks for your patience and your understanding. I appreciate that from everybody. I'm so sorry about this. So, it's a risk with Nolan that, high risk, high reward. But if you strike gold, if you can make him develop, if you can get him to where he needs to be, he's all pro caliber. He was
Got
the top recruit overall in the country as a senior in high school. He was the number one player. So that's the level of traits and clay that we're talking about is unbelievable untapped ability and physicality. Off the charts.
Now, how do you feel? This is another name that I've heard quite a bit comparing Nolan to Kenneth Grant, Michigan D tackle, huge, huge big body guy. Um, would you be happier with Kenneth Grant or with Nolan?
No,
No.
no.
Okay, tell me how you feel
The
about Kenneth
the
Grant. He was on a roll there. Bears not only taking the players we need, but they take the coach. Man, Julie is killing it today. Took the coach that we
his body
wanted and
that
needed.
he's
I
332. Yeah, I know. Here we go. Okay, so the issue with Grant is that 332, but how much of it is lean muscle? There's a lot of people that think there's plenty of fat on that 332. He only had 22 bench reps in the combine at Indy. He's not that strong given that he's 332. Most of the guys that do really well in stuffing the run are incredibly strong.
got
So
it.
that would be somebody like TJ Sanders from South Carolina, who is only 305 pounds, but a lot stronger than Kenneth Grant. He'd have, in my opinion, more success as a result. So I'm not as high on Grant as some people because some are just looking at the weight and saying he'll stop the run. He's great at pursuing the run. He carries his 332 well in terms of pursuing guys. He can run guys down. It's really impressive. But
Yeah.
can he stop the run in the gaps when he's double teamed, given that he's not that strong? 22 reps is kind of light.
Yeah. And Kenny, maybe he can stop, the run now, but how consistent can he be? Does he kind of hit that rookie wall a lot sooner? If you don't have as much muscle on you, I feel like you tire out. Like, even if you have the ability to be agile and to move, I feel like you tire out more when you're more fat than muscle.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. He would have to remake his body. They could work with him on it, but it's just that anybody assuming, well, he's 332, therefore he's going to be a great run stuffer for two gap run defense in the wide nine. Not necessarily. And TJ Sanders might be better just because he's stronger. Your dad asked, what about Noel Williams? I love Noel Williams. He's one of my top ranked DBs. He had a pick six against Cam Ward at Cal at Memorial Stadium. Guy can play. I love
love it.
Noel Williams. He is
Love
a
it.
complete player. He plays great physical defense.
Dad, do you just like this guy because he's from Cal, though? Be honest. The next guy that I wanted to talk about, speaking of my dad, he earlier Julie was asking him how he feels about Oregon players, and my dad said that he
Flashpoint.
mostly likes Oregon running backs, but I've heard, of this guy quite a bit, and I know the 49ers were at Oregon's pro day. Tom highlights Derek Harmon, D tackle. How do you feel about him, Tom? Oh, you're
He's
back.
back finally. Yeah. He's got great stats. His stats just jump out. The stats are incredible. But he doesn't have a great first step, and that's Koseric's holy grail. If you don't have a
Yeah.
great first step, he's not interested. Harmon doesn't have a great first step, so I don't think they're going to go that route. I
Can
think
I
they'll
ask a
prefer
stupid question?
Nolan. Yeah.
What does a first step mean? Like, just like off the line
How
speed?
you go how you go off the line. You're literally your first step off the line, how fast, how strong.
Got it. What Tom said in his article, and I really encourage you guys to read this, is that he has huge production. This is Derek Harmon we're talking about, Oregon D tackle, huge production. But Tom
Good
prefers
at it.
Nolan.
No
Oh, prefers Nolan. Thinks that he's has a better first step, and so therefore a better pick. Hi, Tom. I was kind of trying to fill in the gaps of what I
yeah.
anticipated you would say, but you're the expert. So, um, if you're there, I'd love to hear more about Derek Harmon really quickly.
He is basically the playmaker where Oregon designs their defense around Derek Harmon to make plays.
Oh, and Tom's down again. The think the sucks is the last couple of streams that we've had with Tom, his internet's been great.
System is
Um,
funneled to him, and it's built around what he can do. I need to get to San Diego fast.
you
Anyway,
and you think that his first step, which is off the line speed, that first step rules him out for Chris Koceric because he's been on record talking about how important that first step is to him. Um, there's a couple other players that you've highlighted. Mikael Williams from Georgia, edge rusher. He has been mocked to the 49ers quite a bit. You said that he has a similar body type to Bosa and Alden Smith. Um, if you're there, I would love to hear you talk about Mikael Williams for a second, just because I feel like is a name that could be important because I've heard it a lot, and I'm not a draft expert. And Tom is out. And guys, don't be mean about Tom's internet.
young
His internet is normally
he
fine, and I don't appreciate comments that are.
Steve-O, how do I
Um,
watch film with no internet? It sometimes it's as frustrating as this. It'll take me hours to watch a game. But yeah, it's tough. Anyway, Mikael Williams, the issue with him, very young. He's only 20, doesn't turn 21 until the end of June. He's got a long way to go in terms of his development where he can become something great. But what he is now is
Raw, maybe kind of like this stream. I feel like there is some positives in Mikael Williams being so young. If he develops correctly, you have him very cheap in the prime of his career, and then if you want to extend him, he's still, you feel like you have
yeah,
multiple years left.
y-
Where like some guy, I'm like Ricky Pearsall, even if he turns out to be a stud, which I think he might be great. I don't think he'll be a stud, but even if he was, you would be hesitant to extend him because he's going to be like almost 30 by the time he's on his second deal. And we have some other guys that we might go over. Um, Tom suggests that the 49ers could trade up to get Membu. Talks about Mason Graham, Will Campbell, Warren, or Walker fall, if those either of those guys fall, that the 49ers definitely will choose them. If not, he thinks Samar Stewart, defensive end, Texas A&M. I'd love for Tom to be here to explain Stewart more. I've heard this name
Stewart.
less. I've heard this name less, Tom.
Yeah,
Um,
he has unbelievable skills and traits where he's kind of like no one, where he's all traits. And then what can you coach him into? On
okay,
his traits are equatable to Miles Garrett, but his stats are the invisible man. He has 4.5 sacks in his career, 3 years. He has a lot of pressures this year, but he doesn't have a lot of sacks. And he's only got 15 defensive stops. That stops behind the line or at the line of scrimmage. He's going to have to be coached up a ton. But once
got
he's
it.
coached up, he can be amazing. He's another one that has an all pro ceiling if you can get him there, if you can coach him there.
Do you think he'll like that could be a guy that you trade back for? Because 4 sacks is like nothing, I feel like.
Yeah. The problem with trading back is who's willing to trade up? Nobody. If all the players are the same, that's the issue with this draft. Once you get out of that top nine, the players from 11 to 25 are basically the same. And so nobody wants to trade up. They just want to go get their guy and they'll wait for their guy. And if it's
Got it.
not their guy, there's a second guy that they can get. There's no one that's saying, I need to trade up to get X. And that
I think
part of
I
that is also because the quarterbacks are so bad this year that you don't trade up for a QB either.
I think I saw I know Larry Kruger, a former another content creator, talked about. He said 11 is the perfect spot to trade up if you want Jackson Dart, Jalen Milroe, or Sanders, or McKillen. I might be McMillan.
Oh,
You
oh, Tet McMillan. Yeah, all
yeah,
those quarterbacks would be teams would say, I don't have to trade up. I can just wait at my pick for that guy to fall to me. And
got it.
that could be the case. Jackson Dart might not even get picked in the first round. Shadur might get picked late first. So Milrow, same thing. If I'm Pittsburgh, I just say whoever of those quarterbacks falls to 21, I take. I don't trade up for 11 to go get them. That's the
Okay, so
problem
you
there.
you
Ted
think that
McMillan, there's a lot of people that don't like Ted McMillan. And
yeah.
so nobody's going to say, he's the guy I want. He's the wide receiver I need to deal up for. Yeah, no. This isn't like last year's draft where there were truly elite wide receivers that teams would trade up for. This year, that's not true.
I know that I've seen a lot of talk about Milrose stock raising. Now I don't necessarily think he's a player that would do well on the 49ers at all.
No,
Have
no.
have you
They wouldn't
you
even
have you
consider
made
him.
this comp that he's similar to maybe like a Trey Lance? Like you don't want to
Yeah. The problem with Milrow is he's inaccurate, and what Kyle wants is see it, throw it. So you see the players open, you throw the ball, and you get it to him in space, and then he runs to the ball. Milrow isn't that kind of quarterback. He's a runner, but he's not accurate. He's not a processor.
Shador Sanders is more like that, right? He's more
Yeah,
of a
Shadur's
passer.
like that, but Milrow is not. Your dad asked about safeties. Who do I like at safety? Not Bowman.
Bowman, Clemson. More Ohio State, Woodson, Cal. I don't know if those guys are all in the same category. I think Cal is kind of going to go much later than the latter two, but I could be wrong. Tom's frozen. Oh, I thought he was making a comeback, so I was trying to be quiet for a second there.
All right, so the safeties I like. Eamon Worry, who was amazing at the combine, but he'll be gone first round. Malachi Starks, a lot of people love him. I don't. Makuba from Texas, really fast, playmaker, good player. I like him, but he's probably gone between 75 and 100. Malachi Morgan's a safety that comes from Alabama that's a coach on the field, really smart. And my sleeper is a guy named Katon Crawford from Nevada. He ran a great short shuttle. He ran a good 40. He's a good special teams player. He's somebody that could play free safety and be a nice playmaker for them. He's projected to go in the 170s, so he's somebody they could pick at 160 and be a sleeper for them there.
did you say Makumba is a guy that a lot of
Makuba,
people
yeah.
like, and how do you
Yeah,
feel about
yeah. A
him?
lot of people love him because he's fast,
Okay,
really
but
fast.
do you have a what's his con? Not that he is a con, but if there was a con on him, what would it be?
Comp on him would just be any safety with 4.3 speed that can close, that's
No, no,
got
no,
ball
a
skills.
con.
Oh, con on Makuba is that he doesn't tackle well. He
Okay.
plays out of control, and so he doesn't wrap his arms well. He doesn't have long arms to begin with. He has to work on his wrap and tackling technique.
I feel like that's so important for Robert Saleh. I don't know if he would ever
He might not. He might
go
not. He
after a guy
might
like
say
that
that
if he
Makuba, you've got
decides.
your missed tackle rate is way too high for my taste. It's are they confident that he can be coached out of that? The problem with Makuba is just that he plays so fast that he doesn't necessarily tackle well.
I for now, I would say I don't anticipate the 49ers to pick him then, just because when you say not a
No,
good tackler, I say that's a
that's
must for
probably
Robert Saleh. I almost feel like they value good tackling over speed. And I think they need speed. I'm not trying to poo-poo speed, but lays the wood, he's physical. Okay. Um, I have a couple more questions that I wanted to go over, but we could leave it for our next
Ma
session.
yeah,
Um,
so for Mitchell and Ness, yes, Makuba is a hitter when he does make contact, but his missed tackle rates are way too high for Saleh.
got it. Got it. So it's not that he's on like when he does make contact, he performs well, but he's just missing. And
Yeah, when he makes tackle, boom,
yeah,
because he's that fast. But his arms are short and his technique isn't good. He needs work.
yeah. And I don't want to see that
The
like
issue with
accelerated.
Makuba really is he goes 75 to 100, and they're going to be looking at other positions there. I think that he would be too high for their taste in terms of we need a free safety, but we don't want to take him that high, which is where then somebody like Malachi Moore comes in if they want to coach on the field, or somebody like Crawford if they want to take a late guy that's a flyer with good athleticism and skills.
Love it. Now the one good thing for us is we're gonna have one more stream before the NFL draft, so I'd love to
Cool.
go over some of these players again. Now I did have a couple DM'd questions. One of them was, should the 49ers get Jalen Ramsey? My initial thought is absolutely not.
No.
Then I did see someone say, I think it might have been Grant, talked about Richard Sherman, kind of the 49ers getting him at the end of his career. And so then I was like, maybe I don't know, maybe I wrote off Ramsey too quick. To me, he was, I just feel like he's had a pretty sharp fall off, but maybe the 49ers still feel like he's also kind of still expensive. I don't know if they need a guy
Right.
like that.
I think that's the issue, is that his contract's too big. Given what they've been doing on contracts, I don't think they're going to be interested in Ramsey. He's
Yeah, they're not going to be
just
like,
too expensive for them. I
hey,
also
we have
think
a
that Ramsey's career would be better served if he moved to safety. He's no
yeah,
longer a corner.
okay, I can see that. And then considering Brock Purdy, the draft is coming up. They have OTAs coming up next week. Now these aren't actual physical OTAs where they're out in the practice field, but they go over film and like all get together. At the end of last season, Brock Purdy, during his exit, interviews with the media, said he hoped to have a deal done as soon as possible with the 49ers, so that he could participate in all that. I don't necessarily know if that was like a threat. Like when you say, so I can participate, does that imply if you don't have a deal done that you're not going to participate? Potentially. Um, do you think that Brock Purdy's deal will get done before the NFL draft? What about that? I don't,
No,
but
no. But it doesn't need to be.
okay.
Why do you have to have it done before the draft? There's no reason. There's no need.
If
What
Shador
they
Sanders is
ideally want is they want to make it sure that he's tucked away and signed before OTAs begin. That's late May. So
gotcha.
May 27th is the first OTA session. That's the deadline for getting a deal done with Brock. There's rumors that they're close on the money, but they're way far apart on an out in the deal and how much money for signing bonus.
Now, you and I have talked about this before. I would bet, I'd bet money. I don't have a gambling sponsor, but I would say that the out on Brock Purdy's deal is going to be the 2027, the end of Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch's deal. And now, for anyone watching, that doesn't necessarily mean they like get rid of him then. To me, what it means is you have this amount of time with this coach and this GM to prove that you're worth it. And then we can continue, like, we can just guarantee the rest of your contract or whatever, like extend you from there. It's kind of a point where you can reflect. But if the player is not living up to the contract, you're able to then move on from him
Right.
without
Or
having
or
all
the
this
other
additional money.
or the other way around. If they think that they need to move on from Shanahan and Lynch,
Then they want
and
to be
then they
able to move
bring
off
in a
of the
new
quarterback.
GM, the new GM is going to want to handpick a new quarterback. So you need Brock to go out at the same time. What's important is to link all three so that they all have an out at the
At the
same
same time.
moment, so that you can then just have a whole scale or wholesale reboot if that's what they want to do. Um, and Mitchell and Ness, Bowman, yeah, again, but his arms are 28 and a half inches long. He can't tackle. Solid's going to say no. I mean, that's the ultimate T Rex. There are very few examples of players who have arms under 29 who have succeeded in the league. If I was a GM, Bowman wouldn't even be on my draft board.
Got it. Good to
But that's
know.
me. Yeah, that's my bias. But yeah, it's just the only T Rex I
Um,
want to see is in Jurassic Park. I don't want to see him on the field for the Niners.
I and Tom's
Sorry.
Michelin says he understands. He's
Yeah,
undersized.
thanks, man. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
and you can't be. I feel like if you're 49ers, you can't be taking gambles like that right now.
No.
Um, when you have to hit on every single player, there's a lot less chances that you can take. And I feel like the 49ers have kind of backed themselves into a corner. Obviously, last year's draft was pretty good, but the last 4 drafts before that were pretty poor, especially in the early
Yeah.
rounds,
Yeah.
and they've kind of put themselves in a position where now they have to hit, and so
Right.
maybe in previous drafts, if a guy has elite traits but needs development or whatever, they might be more likely to take a chance. Right now, they're in a position they need to go for the safer player because they need someone who's literally gonna, make an impact right now, and that is,
Yeah.
not the place I'd like to be, but it is where the 49ers are at, and they've been pretty honest about feeling like that's the position they're in right now.
Yeah,
Um,
and I would just look upon it as just that's a bias that Saul is going to have, is he's going to want to make sure a safety can close. Yeah, Bowman's biggest issue is his missed tackle rate. I think it's 33%. It's something crazy. And it's all related to having short arms. So I don't think they're going to go there. I realize that Bowman can make plays, that he's really fast, that he can be a playmaker in college, but in the pros, I don't think he's going to succeed. And it's unfortunate. You know, you give a guy 2-inch arms, 2 inches more in his arms, and he's a great player. And you give him 2 inches less, and maybe he'll make it in the league. Maybe he has to play in Canada.
Yeah.
Brutal, brutal.
That's the thing about these athletes. Like you have to think about your college or your high school and think about the one player that stood out as better than anyone else. And that player, doesn't really make a dent in when it comes to NFL players. Like there's so much, it's not just, hard work, dedication, skill and talent. All of the things that you're in control of are important, and that's on top of I was born physically gifted. Like I just have traits that other humans do not have. And I feel like that's one of the, cons on not paying Brock Purdy. Mentally, he's the guy that you want. He's a football guy.
Yeah,
Football's all that matters to him. He's going to do everything within his control. But the question when it comes to making this guy your franchise quarterback, paying him what, Josh Allen is making, is that Josh Allen is, like a foot taller than him and weighs 50 more pounds than him. And when you see these guys going, back to back or facing similar defenses, there's certain balls that Josh Allen can throw that Brock Purdy can't, and
yeah,
I'm just relating it to this guy. Like he could be special in the head, but there's going to be certain players that he's not going to be able to keep up with, and fight back with just because of his physical, uh, you know.
yeah. Well, it's the genetic dice give you talent, and they can take it away. And unfortunately for this kid, it's his arms are so short. It's really unlikely that he's going to succeed in the league. And that's really unfair that you've got everything but the arms, but because you don't have the arms, that's it.
Yeah.
That's a tough fate to face.
Um, Josh Connerly, left tackle, is a DM that I got.
Yeah.
Just as Josh Connerly Jr. left tackle question mark. What do you have to say about that, Tom? I don't know
Yeah,
what the question is there,
Connor
but
I love Connerly. The issue with Connerly is he's a guard with tackle length arms. So he hasn't
kind of the
developed.
opposite problem of
Yeah,
everyone else in this draft.
he's the anti Bowman. So in his case, it's he has to develop the rest of his body as a tackle because as we saw the clip that went viral from Mobile was Mike Green bull rushed him and knocked him on his ass. And that's the issue with Connerly is he doesn't have that heavy wallet yet. He doesn't have the big anchor. He's got everything else though. He's great movement skills, really fast, quick, smart, great technique, great angles. Oregon played Penn State. They played Abdul Carter, the apex predator of this entire draft. Connerly shut him out. He didn't get a single sack. That's how good Connerly is.
Okay.
Problem is, Connerly goes late first, early second. The Niners are at 43. You either have to trade into the late first and give up a lot to get him, or you hope he falls to you, or you try to trade into the early second. No matter what, in order to get him, you probably have to give up a lot of draft capital to get there. Are they
And you
willing to
can't
do that
trade.
with him? Maybe. And they've shown a lot of interest in him. They had a formal interview with him at Indy, and then went at his pro day in Eugene. They met
Oregon, yeah.
with him in a private session after that for another interview to talk to him. They love him. They love him.
Okay.
But can they get him? He's at a spot where it's really hard, where he falls between the cracks of their picks. It's very hard for them to build a bridge to Josh Connerly. There are some mocks that have him falling 243. If that happens, they would take him. But will that
Now,
happen? Don't know.
what's interesting, because I went through my notes to because I have notes on some of these players, but I don't have them all memorized. And the only note that I have on Josh Connerly, I say, from Oregon, projected as a late first, 2-year college starter, 21 years old, 6'4", 314 pounds. But then this is what's interesting. I'm bringing it up because you're on the screen. I put better than Calvin Banks? Question mark. So it's interesting. Calvin Banks is being kind of mocked to the 49ers at 11, but for some reason I've written down that he could be better than him. Why
He
is
is
he
better than
projected
him
to go so why is he projected to go at the end?
because
Just
Banks is
name value?
bigger, because
Okay.
Banks has all that requisite size as a tackle,
Okay.
and Connerly doesn't. Connerly's body hasn't filled out yet, but Connerly's skill set, Connerly's
He's
technique.
21. He could gain weight.
Yeah, I know, but that's why.
Yeah.
But yeah, whenever you're talking to me and Kelvin Banks is in the question, the answer is always they're better than Banks.
Got it. Certified Calvin Banks hater. Let's hope he
It's
doesn't
just yeah,
become a great player.
yeah. Kelvin Banks would be a great guard in the NFL. It's just that if you're going to be drafting him, it's with Trent Williams' replacement in mind, and that can't happen. Therefore, complete waste of a pick. You don't take Kelvin Banks. Period. You don't. So
Got
with
it.
Connerly, it's can they build a bridge to him? Will he fall to them at 43? Maybe. Could they trade up in the early second to get him? They could. Late first, I think that'd be really a, a bridge too far for them to try to do that. So if Connerly's there at 43, I think that he would be the guy that they would take and they would weigh that. The only other player that I think they would consider would be Trevion Henderson if he falls to 43 as well. Then that's an issue for Kyle. But I think that if with those two were both on the board at 43, I think they'd take Connerly.
Does Chicago like does Chicago
And
like him?
there's the problem. Once again,
Oh.
who are the two players the Bears like? Josh Connerly and Trevion Henderson. They pick at 39 and 41. The Niners are 43.
Can you trade
So
to
if
38?
you yeah,
Who's
so
picking
if you want to
38?
do that, and they've been talking a lot to New England, so they've been talking to New England to move up all the way up in the first, but they should be talking more to New England about trading up in the second,
That second.
because
Yeah.
that's where you can get the players the Niners truly love. That's what they need to do. They need to get ahead of Chicago.
The cool
Chicago's going to take away players. Kyle's going to be really mad when Chicago makes their picks. It's
well,
not
the
going to
cool
be good
thing
for him.
if they do get Connerly, even if they trade up and have to give up some assets, they get him, at 38 or 43, anywhere around there. That opens up the first round pick to actually be a defensive guy, and Robert Saleh to
Yeah.
make that pick, which is what I'm leaning towards will happen. Just
Yes.
because there was such an exodus on defense, and we know that Robert Saleh really wanted Greenlaw specifically, and then with Robert Saleh kind of can stepping down from his head coaching opportunities to come be here. I wonder if there was like a backdoor handshake, like we're gonna allow you to have that first round pick.
Could be.
Um,
Could be.
and I trust Robert Saleh, so I'm not even
Yeah.
necessarily
Me
against
too.
that. But I do want them to make some moves for the offensive line. So I'd be happier with that than some of the things that I've anticipated, because I've seen mock drafts where the 49ers don't touch O line until like the third or fourth round, and that scares me.
And that's more likely because they'll load up on the two defensive ends, the two defensive tackles, running back, tight end. By the time they get to offensive line, you're into the fourth round, the fifth round. One guy that might have some hope for you is a guy named Charles Grant. He's from William and Mary. That's somebody that they brought in and looked at. They've had him run a workout. They like him. He's a possibility. He's a tackle. He could go probably in the fourth, and so that's somebody that they could get. And he'd be a developmental guy that is someone I think that they would be very interested in.
Mitchell Ness says Kyle needs a top 5 defense to prop him up. I hope the 49ers load up on defense. I mean, anytime the 49ers have made it to the Super Bowl and been their most successful self, they've had a healthy quarterback, B, a star running back that's, pushing the offense forward, and then a defense that is keeping the offense rested and off the field as much as possible, or on the field as much as possible.
Yeah,
So
all that, all the above. And this draft might reflect that, where they make a lot of picks in the defensive line, but they also make a pick at running back earlier than anybody wants.
yeah.
And I think that Kyle will be justified in doing that if it's Trevion Henderson. Caleb Johnson, I don't like as much as Trevion, though. And
If they
people
do
wanting
get
Cam Scadaboo, no. He
why
ran
why no? I'm interested
he
because
ran
I've just heard his name a
465.
lot.
Kyle wants speed at running back in this draft. Scadaboo doesn't have it.
Okay.
And
He's
Kyle needs
more
to move off of fullback. And I think that part of the way that he's showing that he's willing to do that is he's looking at the receiving tight ends in the draft, Harold Fannin and others. So he's trying to make a transition to 12 personnel and getting away from fullback. I think that once Juice is retired, Kyle is going to pivot off of fullback, and then you
Yeah.
don't need Scattaboo. I don't want Scattaboo, and I don't think Kyle does either. Kyle wants
I
speed.
yeah. I can see that. Have why do you think there's been so much hype? Like, I feel like he's a 49er favorite. I've just heard his name so much. Is it literally he just has a fun name?
I hate to say this, but go after me if you wish. He's white.
Got it. 49ers love their white guys, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm not saying
now
the Niners are racist. I'm saying that the fans are draft crushing on Scattaboo because he's the best white running back.
got it. I have a question. If they do draft running back super high, and once again, I can, although it wasn't it's not something I would, if I would looked on paper, I wouldn't be like, this is your number one need. But because their offense is so running back dependent and I'm worried about Chris McCaffrey, I wouldn't poo poo it. But from the 49ers perspective, are they poo pooing Christian McCaffrey? Like, is this that, would that, would it be
I
fair to
don't think
say they
so.
don't believe in Chris McCaffrey in
No,
that
I
scenario?
think it's insurance policy and it's smart that you've got a loaded draft at running back where you've got a lot of people that are very good and it's deep on top of that of just not only are you getting guys that are capable of being all pros, pro bowlers, you're getting guys that could do that, that could be a starter who could be picked in the fifth, even the sixth round. The running back class in this draft is that deep. So it would be negligent to not take a running back in this draft, given the depth and ability of it. So yeah, there you are. Um, I would think that there's a possibility again that Kyle is going to look at running back a lot earlier than people want. That Trevion Henderson at 43, Caleb Johnson is more later in the second round. He's like 60,
Okay.
but he's another one that fits, and the Niners liked him and interviewed him. And there's a few others that they like Harvey, they like Tootin. I would think that they would like Dylan Sampson from Tennessee. So there's a couple of players, Brashard Smith from SMU that I mentioned earlier, Jaden Blue from Texas. The concern with him is he fumbles a lot. So people are saying Jaden Blue is really fast. He's a good back from Texas. Yeah, but if there's one thing Kyle won't take, it's guys that fumble. Yeah,
Yeah.
and Kyle won't play guys that fumble. So you can
Yeah.
draft Jaden Blue, and everybody say, "Yeah, we
Wait.
got Jaden Blue," and then he never plays.
Yeah, it's a waste. I agree with that. Just look at Kyle's history, even if it's a skilled player. And I know a lot of people say Chris McCaffrey has fumbled. Chris McCaffrey and Kyle, in my opinion, have a different relationship than he has with most running backs, just because they have that
Yeah,
personal
well,
relationship.
Kyle babysat Christian as a kid, and that's a different thing.
There's no way that the 49ers, like, Ashton Genty doesn't fall to the 49ers at 11, and if he does fall, do they draft him?
I don't think so. And here we go again with Colin fumbles. 8 fumbles in 2 years for Ashton Genty. Now that has to come with an asterisk though of yeah, 4 fumbles this year, but on 400 carries. I mean,
Yeah, he had,
Boise
like, a
State
ton
gave him
of
the ball every down. So you have to factor that in and say that if he gets a normal workload, is he really going to fumble that much? Probably not. But if I had to guess, I would say that Kyle would rather have Trevion Henderson than Ashton Genty.
Okay. Well, I'm not opposed to that because I do think that 11 is too early. Although, like, I I've talked myself into the running back is important, and if they're a game changer, I can see it happening. But I would rather them get an impact player on defense, go either get Connerly or get the running back right there at 43 or around there. But it'll be interesting. I didn't realize how much Chicago is our enemy this year. We have to really look out for what they want, and they seem to be building their team similarly because they want to build around Caleb Williams the best as possible. They want him to have a good running back. They want him to have great trenches. So 49ers are going to need to, John Lynch specifically is going to need to be creative on scheming around that. Is Tom there? Do we think? We might close up. Oh, hi, Tom.
I'm
um,
so sorry, Ashley and
Julie
everybody.
says,
I'm so
really,
sorry for
really
this.
quickly, Julie says,
Grey
if we
Zabel,
don't get, if we don't get O-line, Purdy will get hurt and we'll be shit out of luck after having paid him no less. And unfortunately, if you look at
Yeah,
Kyle Shanahan's history with quarterbacks, this would not be a surprising outcome. And I hate to predict
that's
that. I'm
the
not trying to
thing.
predict that. I'm just saying if you look at Kyle Shanahan, his quarterbacks, and what happens after they get paid, and his
Look at Garoppolo.
commitment to not paying the offensive line, this is
Right.
something that has happened. Um, I agree. By the way, Mitchell and I said the show got better, or the internet got better as the show went on. I think the last 20 minutes you were pretty
Little
critical.
bit. But yeah, to Julie's point, yeah, but that's Kyle. He's not going to invest in the offensive line unless he has to. Now, it may be, if they trade up for Membu, then I think we can reasonably assume that Trent has told Kyle that either he's retiring now or he's retiring after next year.
That was my prediction as well. I That was the one thing I talked about when you restarted your computer earlier on. Is will we have kind of a breaking news splash moment where we find out that Trent Williams has told, in confidence, Kyle and John earlier that either A, he wanted to be traded to a contender, or B, that he's not coming back to football. He had that. I know Julie said thank God, and then 1 second later it was the internet. So right after we got done celebrating, um, we will be going live one other time um before the draft, which will be really nice. And maybe we'll try going a little bit earlier. Sometimes that helps with Tom's internet. We haven't had any problems in the recent streams. Um, so we'll definitely be coming back
Yeah.
before. Hi Tom, I was just saying we do have another live stream before the draft, which is going to be
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. And we'll have to go over the draft in depth then. But I thought we
Yeah.
did a good job between my internet dropouts of trying to get as much draft info as we could out.
I agree. Really quickly, I just because I Lester and Valerie Greeny says trade back into in the first and get another second.
Sure,
Um,
but you need a
we
draft. You need a dance partner to do that. Nobody wants to trade up because all the players from 11 to 25 are very similar.
Yeah.
So
Tom and I went over this earlier in the stream. We both agree that this could be a really good idea, especially because they feel the urgency to hit on so many picks. You want to be able to have more picks because then you have more opportunities of hitting, especially when 11 is kind of Tom is saying like the most elite talent is top 9. So if you're not in that top 9, either A, trading up until the top 9, or B, doing what you're doing, trading back, getting more picks. The issue with trading back, as Tom is saying, is 11 through the end of the first round are kind of similar talent wise. So you might not have a trade partner. They struggled with that last year too, if I'm not mistaken. Hi, Dom, you're back. I was just kind of addressing this. We talked about it a little bit, but I imagine that this guy entered late. Trade up to 8 with the Panthers, maybe. Like I started this stream out saying 49ers have been in contact with everyone in at least in the top 6. There's multiple reports that they've been talking with the Patriots. Now, Tom kind of opened an eye for me where it would be nice for them to trade above Chicago with the Patriots in round 2, and that actually might be the better use of their assets is actually
yeah,
trading up
yeah.
in that second round versus trading up in the first, depending on what falls to them, especially depending on like which teams actually end up getting quarterbacks. The Giants are a team that we might want to keep our eye out for because a couple weeks ago it felt like they weren't going to get a quarterback, but now it's been rumored that they've been talking more. So maybe that's just
Well,
doing their due
they worked
diligence.
out Shadur. I think that's dotting I's, crossing T's. We'll see. Trading up to 8 with Carolina, they love Jalen Walker. He's apparently going to be their pick. They aren't interested in moving down, which is why the Niners need to get above the Jets. The issue for the Niners is if they want Membu, they need to get to 5.
Got it.
And so that would be the trade up move.
Sounds great to me. I really appreciate everyone who was in the chat.
Yeah, thank you,
Um,
everybody. I am so sorry.
No worries. My dad makes a funny comment. I'd love to stream with my dad, but he lives in absolute boondocks, and we could pay as much money as possible, and there would be no way to ever get internet in that house. When I was a kid, we literally had
Ouch.
dial-up. Like you had to like turn a
Oh
circle to
yeah, yeah. The AOL dial-up sound and all that. Yeah, lovely,
it
lovely.
was it was ridiculous.
You might
But
as well have internet on the moon. It's that far away. Yeah.
yes. But we'll make sure, like, really quickly, Julie's just been on fire, so I want to read her last chat. Kyle demands perfection, no fumbling, yet he's far from perfect himself. Hypocrisy at its finest. Completely agree. Will Kyle ever look in a mirror? I I want to say I don't think so, but like I said, I feel like I'm being monitored. My last stream was wiped from the internet for purposes that I'm not allowed to speak on.
They are
But
watching you. Yeah, yeah, we'll see.
uh Tom and I will definitely be going live next week. Tons more, even more in detail draft breakdown, because the draft, if we go live on Tuesday, the draft will be starts on that Thursday. It's all weekend long. We have round one the first day. We have to see, will the 49ers trade
Yeah,
back
so
and get more
I
picks, or
agree
will
with
they trade
Julie.
up?
It did
I hear Tom. Tom, you're here.
hey.
um, I was just saying I love you to everyone, and we will be going live next week, and we're gonna have better internet, and it's gonna be great.
Should be.
Israel's coming in
Sorry,
at
but
the
thanks so much
buzzer,
for your patience, everybody, and especially you, Ashley. I'm so sorry.
of course. Israel's coming in at the buzzer. He says offensive line or defensive tackle is the bigger need. Both of them are humongous needs. What I think it will come down to is who is there when they're picking. Hopefully, they
Yeah.
go for the better talent. I this is not based on anything, but I have a kind of a draft crush on Connor Lee. And if the 49ers could trade up in the second, get him, that takes care of offensive line. And I'm not saying it's a bigger need because I think both are needs, but I'm under the assumption, I'm just making an educated guess, I don't know this, that Robert Saleh was promised the first round pick. So I think if I was
I think
betting,
that
I think they're
tracks.
going to
I
go
agree
defense.
with you on that. Yeah, I
I,
agree.
I think they'll go defense there. And then with that second pick, it'll be interesting. Tom kind of threw a wrench in it by mentioning that running back that could be there, and I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to it, depending on what happens. And then Mitchell says Warriors must win tonight. Go Dubs. Yeah, I really hope they win. I'm such a bandwagon. I like don't. There's just so many games in basketball, so I don't always watch. I don't usually watch much of the regular season, but when it gets to this time, and it feels like the games really matter, I quite enjoy it. Last year, I was doing some like PT for my hip, and so I would always plan going to the gym right when the Warriors game started, so then it'd be on the big
Oh,
TV.
cool. Yeah, she had
Um,
something to watch. That'd be great.
yeah. Now, see, I'm with my friend, and I'm going to his brother's wife. I don't know what that would make her, but him and her daughter who loves me, and I like when kids like me because I feel like it's like a good test. Like
Sure.
there are these little kids and they, I'm like I want to like, I like want to impress them. It's so silly that like
Yeah,
10-year-olds
yeah.
can like run your life. But so I'm gonna be, I think, at dinner during the Warriors game, and I'm kind of upset about it. But I'm also, happy. So I'll see what
Mm,
happens. I hope they win. They better win because then they're going to be more important
important
games
game.
that I'll make sure to
Important game
keep
for
up
them.
with.
Yeah.
The Last of Us also came out. My dad, who's in the chat, my dad and I watched that a couple years ago when it was out, and I was also going through some PT stuff. So I was bothering my dad like
Yeah.
every day, making him go on long walks and do my physical therapy with me. And then after we would watch the Last of Us, which is a pretty good
Nice.
show.
Nice.
Yeah, I finished
My
Severance.
dad and I, we have our Warriors history. We went from we had season tickets for the We Believe team, and then we kept those tickets through to Steph Curry in the finals. So we saw them go from nothing to everything. It was
Look
really
at
fun. It was
that's
great.
that's
Love
that's
that.
awesome, Tom.
Love, love,
I've
love that.
I've never been I've never been to like a Warriors game or a basketball game in general in
Oh, it's
person, like
fun.
aside
It's
from
a
like football.
great
I
atmosphere. It's really
Yeah,
fun.
I've heard. I've heard. So I'll definitely have to do that sometime, but I really appreciate everyone for coming and joining us and sticking with us through the technical difficulties. Like I said, we'll be coming back to you. Maybe we'll try to go. Sometimes I feel like it works a little bit better if we go a little earlier. So
Yeah.
maybe I'll try to work my schedule around to be home a little bit earlier. That way we can give you guys a full, in-depth, clear breakdown before the draft. And then when the draft happens, I'll be, making videos for every pick and every trade up
Great.
or back or whatever they do. And I
Okay.
know Tom will be writing articles about it. If
Well,
anything, was a
Coach
little
and I have a live
confusing.
stream. We're going to live stream throughout the entire draft.
Who? You and Coach?
Coach and I,
Hell
yeah.
yeah. There you go. That'll be great. Oh, you're gonna have so much good information. So make sure to like and subscribe to my channel. Follow Tom Ninercast on Twitter. Like I said, right before, I don't think you guys would have had the opportunity to read it because it was posted right before the stream. His article that really breaks down a smaller subset of names that are important to know because it feels like those are the names that are going to be going around 11. He highlights all of them and gives a good breakdown on trading up, trading back, who is, a can't miss prospect and who's a prospect that you maybe want to skip over. You guys, if you watch this stream, might be able to guess who the one guy Tom is
Yeah.
anti. But
Yeah.
really appreciate you guys. Make sure to check out Tom's article and stay subscribed because like I said, lots of content coming up in the next couple weeks. So we
Yeah.
really appreciate
There's going
it.
to be
And
draft. I'm going to have draft previews by position, starting with defensive tackle later this
hell
week.
yeah.
And then every position going in depth through the entire draft, who to look for, who the Niners should be interested in theory, and then giving some breakdowns of why they're good, why they're bad, what picks make sense, that sort of thing.
Hell yeah. So everyone make sure to like I said, like, subscribe, follow Tom. We really appreciate you and we'll be coming to you with, a jam-packed show next week. So we really appreciate it. Love you guys. Have a good and safe week. Bye.